It's 11:30. So if we're all set, I'm just going to take a quick look to see how many are on the live stream. We've got about 20 people on the live stream right now. A couple of questions have already come in, so we will address those. Just while everybody is getting settled, just want to thank you all for tuning in today. I'm Jessica Melwani. I'm joined by my PTA co-president, Karen Swibel, and of course, Manorhaven School Principal, Dr. Bonnie Cohen. And thank you also to our interpreter on the line, Manorhaven parent, Victor Alfaya, who is providing language access for our Spanish-speaking families today. So thank you all, and thank you everyone for joining today. The past few weeks have been extremely tumultuous, stressful, and at times confusing for all of us, including all of the people who have been working so hard on the plans over the course of this summer. So whatever your feelings about the reopening plans or the process that got us here today, please know, can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
You're a little quiet.
I can hear you.
Is that better?
It's a little low.
How about that? Better?
Better. Perfect.
Okay. Well, you know what? Then I'm going to start again. and we'll give back the time. So again, thank you everybody for joining today. I'm Jessica Melwani. Hopefully you can hear me now. I'm joined by my PTA co-president, Bible, and even school principal, Bonnie Cohen. We're also very grateful to our interpreter, Victor Alfaya, Manorhaven dad, who is providing language access for families today. As I said before, the past few weeks have been so tumultuous, very stressful, and at times very confusing for all of us, including those folks who have been very diligently preparing and trying to make these plans to get our kids back to school safely. So whatever your feelings are about the reopening plans or about the process that got us here today, please just know that the staff and administration at Manorhaven have been working tirelessly over the summer to bring our kids safely back to school. The recent curveballs have been challenging for everyone, and we're grateful for the commitment that our community of faculty, staff, and of course all of you engaged parents have shown to finding the safest and most creative solutions possible within some unprecedented constraints. The goal of this meeting is not to debate the merits of one plan over another or discuss how or why we got here, but to provide some clarity on how school will work on a day-to-day basis under the hybrid reopening plan. We received almost 300 questions over the past week, and we shared every one of them with Dr. Cohen, who today will address those that came up most frequently, those that are critical to potentially helping you guys make some decisions about whether to send your kids back in person or to go fully remote. And we will try to cover as much ground as possible. This is for grades 1 and 2. Most of the information presented today will be relevant to all students. There are a couple of questions that came up prior to the meeting that are specific to grades 1 and 2. But if you have any specific questions, please do feel free to use the chat function to submit them, anything that comes to mind as we're talking. Please remember to keep the chat respectful and focused on questions that you would like seen and heard, and know that everybody in the PTA, in the administration, is working really hard to get the information available to you in the most efficient way possible. So rules of the road, just be kind. The chat will be monitored throughout the meeting, and while we may or may not get to the live questions in our hour together, the transcript will be shared with Dr. Cohen afterwards. We in the PTA are taking notes at each meeting, and we'll compile them into an FAQ document to be published on the PTA website after all of these meetings. So with that, we will turn it over to Dr. Cohen to walk us through some of the information.
Thank you. Thank you. The first thing I want to say is that I'm glad we finally had this time together. My goal today is to give you an understanding of the instructional model, answer your questions regarding the health and safety of your children, and explain our building protocols for the upcoming year. Most of all, I want you to know that I will do my best to help you through this difficult time. If I can help you with the easy fixes, please know that I'm willing to do this. My work on district committees was and always will be with the best interest of our students and our staff. I'm taking the final decisions that are given to me and making it work for our school. Although this meeting is only an hour, you will have the opportunity to ask more questions at our open house and even before at follow-up PTA meetings. So I want to start with our instructional model, the hybrid model. All students will begin the day as a group using a Google Meet. A Google Meet will take all students together in a virtual meeting. So whether your child is hybrid in school, hybrid at home, or a full virtual learning student, they will be together as a group and building community. Learning will be continuous and new instruction will take place daily. As a parent, I wanted you to know that we take attendance daily. We ask that your children dress for school, and I don't mean dress up, I just mean dress, and be punctual. So for in-person instruction in the hybrid model, our students will have a combination of Google Meets and live instruction with the teacher. For our at-home students in the hybrid, they will also be on the Google Meet and have asynchronous learning. Asynchronous is when students are doing work on the computer via recorded lessons, PowerPoints, and independent practice. For our all virtual instruction students, they will be on Google Meets, have asynchronous learning, and have the opportunity to live stream and view what's going on in person in the classroom. So some important terms for you. We are now a one-to-one school district. Every student will have a device and learning will take place both on the computer and in person. When you hear the term synchronous instruction, that's live instruction with a teacher on a Google Meet or a Zoom. And virtual learning can include online individualized learning using such platforms as RazKids, iRead, Freckle, Dreambox. These are all programs that customize learning to your student, and they can work on whether they're in school or whether they're at home, but it's on the computer. And Google Classroom, that's a platform where teachers and students come together for instruction. Teachers have the ability to post schedules, provide links for instruction, and can give feedback. We are exploring outdoor Wi-Fi now because we want our students outside as much as possible, while also maintaining the ability to stay in contact with their hybrid and remote learning classmates. Hands-on learning will be combined with time on the computer so that children in school are not on screen time all the time. It will be a very nice balance. We will still have all specials. So the teachers will be pushing into the classrooms. Music and PE will be outside whenever the weather is good. And our specials will be taught in a 2-week rotation. So all our children will have 2 weeks of enrichment, 2 weeks of music, art, library, and 2 cycles of physical education. Our pull-out services will remain just like they have been in the past. Children will be pulled out. We will not pull out during recess and lunch. If your child has a support service, that will take place if they have it 2 times a week, it will take place in school. If they have the service 3, 4, or 5 times a week, the remaining times will be remote. We will still be able to use manipulatives because for math, we know that's the best way to teach our young learners how to do math, but they'll be in individualized bags and there will not be community manipulatives or sharing. We will still have pencils, crayons, scissors, glue sticks, and all the important parts of the classroom. Again, children will have a baggie of their supplies, and it'll be in their backpack so it can come and go with them. Small group instruction will still be part of the classroom in a creative way, such as online or sitting students next to each other, but still maintaining 6 feet, or remotely 1 day a week on Wednesdays when we do small group instruction while all the children are home. So moving on to building protocols, arrival and dismissal. For children who are taking our buses, there will be 22 students on a bus, socially distanced. Our buses have the capacity to hold 66, but we will make sure that we're maintaining social distancing on the bus. We will still have a car line drop off. And we will stagger the time so that we don't have a long line of parents. But of course, if you're assigned a time and you need flexibility, that won't be something you have to ask for in advance. You can just come if you need to be in work and you're assigned a later time. We need to work with you and help you. Our children are going to line up outside and enter the door through multiple entrances. Each class will have a paraprofessional watching them, making sure that they maintain social distancing, and they'll be escorted inside the building. If your child comes to school after and is late, they'll just notice that, just like we do now, the yard is empty. Please enter through the main office, and that will be the only time for our late students that children will come in through the main office. And I will leave a paraprofessional outside to make sure that the children who are coming in late, just for the first, let's say 15 minutes, are being watched as they come in. Dismissal will happen through multiple entrances and exits in the building. Children will remain in their classrooms until they're called for dismissal. We are not having common waiting areas. As far as lunch and recess, lunch will be served in the classroom. All allergy protocols will be followed. Recess will be outside. Children will be in their group cohort, in their class cohort, playing in different sections outside and wearing masks. The children can use the equipment, and we will sanitize, and children will sanitize before and after recess, and the equipment will be sanitized daily. And by equipment, I mean our playground equipment. Indoor recess will be in the classrooms. Children will stay with their own pod, their own small group. They can bring toys, small toys from home to play with. We'll have something on the smart board for them to watch. They can have conversations with the other children in the class, but they have to maintain social distancing. We'll have bathroom rules, one child at a time in the bathroom. A bathroom monitor will be assigned to watch the hallways and watch the bathrooms. Urinals will be closed and only stalls will be used. Every other sink will be used, and paper towels only in the bathrooms, not hand dryers. Every school has an isolation room. This is a room dedicated for staff students who present symptoms. As far as our isolation room, it'll be manned by our nurse, and then we will have a paraprofessional or a float nurse take over our actual nurse's station. But if a teacher calls the nurse's office and lets them know that I have a child here with a fever, we'll make sure that they're escorted, that they're brought to the isolation room, and then their situation will be assessed by the nurse. And then, of course, the Department of Health will be consulted as far as next steps. As a rule, we're having no parent visitors to start the year, no programs from outside vendors, no large events in the building. But this is going to be revisited. If we're optimistic, maybe this is something that can change as the year progresses. We will hope to use as many of our outdoor learning areas for outdoor learning spaces. There will be different spaces outdoors dedicated for instructional use, as well as recess time and mask breaks. We're asking parents to apply sunscreen in the morning for outdoor instruction. We will have, or we're expecting, a few canopies, which will be used for music and instruments. We have the canopies. I'm not sure how often they would be available for us to use just for learning space, but we would ask parents also to send in a towel so that your child could have the towel at school for the week for outdoor seating, and then bring it home on Fridays for a good wash. Now, with regard to the mask breaks, if you haven't already started, please start having your child wear masks for periods of time at home. And what was recommended to me was to ask parents to have them practice wearing masks when they're doing screen time so that they could build stamina. So at home, say when you have screen time, you wear your mask. It's helping you build muscles for mask wearing at school. And Our mask breaks can take place either indoors or outdoors, just for a short period of time. So if they're indoors, it would be for about 5 or 6 minutes, less than 10 minutes, or even just for a stretch of the face and put it back on. Outdoors, we can consider a little bit longer. Children will be spread apart. Snack and lunchtime are additional times during the day that children will not be wearing masks. If a family is uncomfortable with a child taking a mask break, your child can absolutely leave it on. Right now, we do not have any medically exempt children from wearing masks. There are allowances for children with doctor's notes, but we do not have any in the district. So now with regard to some other health and safety issues, I want to read something to you that was provided to me from Buildings and Grounds regarding the cleaning of our building. For daytime procedures, at the start of each day, our custodial crew at each building will diligently clean and disinfect all entry points for students and staff. This includes the wiping down of all door handles, hardware, handrails, and other high-touch surfaces. Throughout the day, custodial staff will be touring the buildings and continue to disinfect surfaces. This includes the above-mentioned areas as well as classroom door handles, drinking fountains, and other points of contact. In addition, we will continue to monitor all restrooms periodically to ensure that they're properly sanitized and well-stocked with hand washing supplies. Classrooms will be cleaned after meals because children are eating in their classrooms. At dismissal time in each building, the process will be repeated and all points, door handles, and hardware, exit points, door handles, and hardware will be cleaned. In conjunction with the above, the custodial staff has installed additional hand sanitizer dispensers throughout the building for the convenience of students and staff. For nighttime procedures, in regards to our nightly cleaning procedures, I have an attached document. I have a checklist of 34 areas in the building that need to be cleaned, including desktops cleaned and disinfected, restrooms, restroom fittings wiped, cleaned, and disinfected, all restroom floors, mirrors, windows, paper towel dispensers refilled as needed. Again, it's an extensive list. In response to the coronavirus, the district has purchased additional fogging machines, which are used for wide-scale application of a cleaning chemical. Previously, this method of disinfecting was reserved for outbreaks of flu and other illnesses in the building. With that being said, in light of current events, we will implement this process on a daily and weekly basis. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the products that are being used. Pure Green 24 is a disinfectant and deodorizer. Hydroxy Pro is our concentrated cleaner. The chemical that they use for the fogger allows this disinfectant to reach areas that can't be reached by hand and allows a larger cleaning areas to be reached. And I would like to mention, you can also send in hand sanitizers with your children that may be used with adult supervision. Some other health points that I'd like to make: all children wearing masks at this time. There are no medical exemptions. I think I said that. Ventilation systems have been checked by Buildings and Grounds. The district has ordered HEPA filters for each room as an added precaution. Large spaces such as the gym, the cafetorium, and the all-purpose room also have these HEPA filters, and our gym and cafetorium may be used for additional learning spaces for children that have pull-out services. It will be in a small group in a large area with a HEPA filter. ACs will be used. Windows and doors can be opened in rooms that do not have air conditioners. Air conditioners are in rooms for medical reasons only. The district will not be purchasing additional units at this time. Each school will be receiving 10 hand sanitizing stations. Now, we are allowed to open because the COVID rate is less than 5% in a 14-day period, and we will be asked to close by Governor Cuomo if we reach 9% in a 7-day period. All children, as they enter the classroom, will use hand sanitizers. And just going a little further with tracing and testing. Health screening begins at home. Parents must take temperatures and assess their children for any symptoms at home. When in doubt, keep them home. Parents will be asked to answer 4 questions every day, and you will have to fill out an app before entering school. Has your child been exposed to COVID? Is your child experiencing symptoms of COVID? Has your child had a positive COVID test? Or have you traveled to any of the restricted areas? If one sibling is sick at home, all siblings should stay at home as well. If a child is in school and presents symptoms, they will be escorted to the nurse's office for assessment. If a child comes to the nurse with a fever, you may be wondering how we know that this is a sign of COVID. So we will always err on the side of caution and leave it in the hands of our professional nurses to make that determination. If our nurses determine symptoms may be related to COVID, they will be supervised in the isolation room, pending pickup, and siblings will be sent home as well. At this point, I would just add that all children will then be welcome on our online learning platform. If deemed necessary by a doctor to get a test, students will be required to stay home until medical clearance, and siblings will be required as well until the test results is in. As per the guidance of the Department of Health, we will determine who needs to be notified of a positive case, and it will be done in letter form. Right now, we're working on placement and placement letters. You will receive them close to the start of our instruction. If your child is separated from a good friend during the hybrid instruction, please know that they will be together again when we're all in. Please remember to send additional masks, and most of all, have faith in our amazing teachers that they'll make this year just as wonderful as any of our other years. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Cohen. With that, we'll have time to take some live questions, which is great. We received, as I mentioned before, about 300 before the meeting, so we'll try to do a combination of those received prior and those that are coming in from the chat, and especially where there's overlap. So there are a lot of questions, starting with arrival and dismissal. When and how will we know when to drop off our students, and where will parents go to pick them up at the end of the day while also avoiding congregating?
All right, so we'll send out letters, information in writing via email with regard to suggested times for drop off in the morning. And then you will also be given a color-coded doorway where to pick up. And I would have to leave it up to the parents to practice social distancing while they're waiting for the children. Again, we're going to spread pickup over a number of different entrances and exits so that not to have too many people waiting in the same spot.
And can you confirm that siblings will be dismissed together from the same location?
Yes, right now we're working on how to make this work for kindergarten, but yes, all other siblings will be dismissed from the same area.
Great. What will happen if a student is dropped off that he is not scheduled to be in school?
So
if a blue student is dropped off on a white day, for example.
Right, so the student would wait and be watched in the cafetorium, and the parents would be called.
Got it. Questions about, we'll just move into health and safety, and I'm sure we'll come back to other logistics. Will HEPA filters be installed by the first day of school?
I believe so, yes. That's the knowledge that I have received.
Okay. And is there any testing plans in place, either at the building level or district-wide, both prior to the start of school? Will students or teachers require a test prior to the school, a COVID test, or will there be regular testing required throughout the year?
That has not been brought to my attention, so I have to answer no.
Okay. And will parents receive specific detailed guidance around when testing is required, what symptoms require it, or are we on our personal physicians and the school nurse to provide that
So I
guidance
believe
on a
there was a
case-by-case
list.
basis?
There was a list of symptoms in the video that the Port Washington principals that we sent out over the weekend, which lists the symptoms, if that's what you're asking. It's also on the district website as far as what are the symptoms to be concerned about. Since one of the questions you have to answer
that would require a child to stay home from school
and consult a doctor.
Okay. We've gotten a lot of questions about what happens with siblings in the case that a student is either sent to the nurse and put into the isolation room, is displaying symptoms possibly related to COVID, or if a child is kept home and siblings are also required to be kept home. Will those students be marked absent, or will they have an opportunity to log on and learn virtually with their cohort?
So they would have the opportunity.
The cohorts that are not there.
They can participate with they can participate with the instruction that's going on in the classroom. It wouldn't be the live streaming instruction, but they could continue to be part of the hybrid hybrid and the Google Meets that are taking place twice a day. So they would be, yes, they would be part of the instructional day.
Great. And is there a protocol for either how parents or the students themselves should identify as being home, but do we need to call the attendance office? How will that work?
So yes, it would be the same thing. If you're home and you're supposed to be in school because it's your day to attend school, then you would call the nurse's office and let them know that you're home and what the reason is.
Got it. Now, just a couple of clarifications on symptoms and COVID testing. The symptoms, as we all know, for COVID are extremely broad. Is there guidance on what requires a COVID test to be able to return to school, or is that also done on a case-by-case basis with your personal physician?
I believe
when do students definitely?
Right. I think if it was detected at school, you would get guidance from our school nurse. The school nurse would send you to your personal physician, and then and ask for a note from a personal physician to return to school.
Okay. A couple of questions have come up about the desktop toys that you mentioned earlier. That was the first time a lot of parents have heard about that. Is the use of desktop toys or anything brought in from home going to be monitored to ensure that they're not being shared?
So the same way math manipulatives would be monitored. Right. No, there is no sharing of any supplies. There's no sharing of any toys. It would be something that your child uses for their own personal recess. We would allow that to come in. It would have to be in a Ziploc bag, and immediately after recess, put right back into the bag. We have an adult in the room who would monitor that and make sure that there is no sharing.
Just getting back into the health and safety, lots of questions about temperature checking and the requirement or the lack thereof. Just to clarify, can you clarify that even under the hybrid model, temperature checks will still not be required daily of every student before entering the building?
No, they are required. Temperature checks are required at home, and parents have to sign off on it.
But they will not be done on site at the building.
Only if they have not been done at home.
Okay. And a lot of questions also came in about the app and the screening. How will staff at the building know if a student has not submitted a screening and needs to be temperature checked?
So we'll have somebody here designated to monitor that. Somebody on the building, whether it's me, the nurse, that has yet to be determined.
Okay. For children who have medical conditions with symptoms that could mimic COVID, that result in a frequent runny nose or cough, would that prevent them from attending school when they're symptomatic? And if not, what's required of parents to ensure that those children can still attend?
So if a child has an allergy or an ongoing medical issue, our school nurse would be notified in advance in any year. And our school nurse would be the one to determine if it was a COVID symptom. She would have this information prior to a student, being noticed. So it wouldn't be a problem. If the nurse is in doubt whether this is actually the allergy or something else, for instance, if there's a fever with that runny nose, then she would use her best medical judgment in making the call. But if any family has a child with any kind of medical issue, the nurse must be notified about it.
A lot of questions came in about our reliance on the honor system among families to fill out the screening on a daily basis honestly, and not to send potentially sick children to school. How is the school addressing that or communicating the sense of personal responsibility we all have to protect all students this year in ways that perhaps maybe parents didn't really think about before?
So this has to be sent in writing through the district. And we also have teachers and paraprofessionals who are going to be all out alert for any child that doesn't look well, that needs to see the nurse before coming in the building. So that would be the paraprofessionals first. Remember, right now, there is one adult assigned to every 10 to 13 children. If that paraprofessional has any suspicion that a child might be sick, the child will either not, will be brought immediately to the nurse or to the attention of the nurse. And then if somebody happens to slip by, our teachers are going to be hypersensitive as well.
Great. How will parents be notified of COVID cases at school, either among students or staff? What is the plan for contact tracing at the building and district level?
That's all that will all happen through the nurse who reports it, and the Department of Health. We will take guidance from the Department of Health.
Okay. And if a child is sick, is it the same procedure to report absence as before COVID, or are there any new aspects to the process of reporting absence?
I don't know of anything that would be done differently at this moment.
Okay. Getting back to masks, you covered a lot about mask wearing, the requirements, mask exemptions. One question that came up a lot was around discipline or encouragement for wearing or not wearing masks throughout the day. How will it be addressed in the classroom if there's a student who refuses to wear a mask or continually takes it on and off?
So I think with kindness, compassion, positive reinforcement, that's how it would be addressed. Our teachers are good at that, at encouraging behavior through positive ways. And I just feel like when children are coming to school and they see all of their friends and all of their classmates, this is what we do now when we're in school, that we can work through this. We can work through this.
Great. Can you just talk through or maybe clarify some of the very specific points around classroom setups? We have a lot of those questions around the spacing between desks. Is it measured between the desks or between the students or a particular part of a student's body? I know we've heard mouth to mouth, nose to nose. What is the exact distance between students or desks? And what is the maximum number of students allowed per class, per room under the hybrid model?
So what I guess under any model we have measured, we're using the Department of Health guidelines, which is right, mouth to mouth, belly button to belly button. I've heard it expressed all different ways. So some of our rooms, it's based on measurement, and some of our rooms can hold up to 16 children. Under the hybrid model, most of our classes would be between 10 and 14. We are currently setting up with two desks, with two sets of desks in the same room. This is not something that has to be. This is just something that we're trying out rather than having, we know that our desk's going to be cleaned every day, but we are still able at this moment to give every student their own desk. It just means that they can use the inside of their desk. If they were sharing desks and it was just cleaning those desks every day, it would be different. They would be using bins. So we are setting up right now for the hybrid using two sets of desks in the classroom.
Okay. Will parents be allowed to visit the building for a walkthrough before classes? And if not, will any kind of virtual walkthrough be provided to sort of show a day in the life of a student at school?
So that's something that I'm going to take with me. Right now, I only have something planned for we only have something planned for our kindergarten students to come in, one parent, one child, to look at the building because it's their first experience. In some respects, I think the children are going to come. They're going to come to a field that they know. They're going to line up. They're going to see their friends. They're going to come in. The only thing that looks different is that the desks are not clustered together. They're spread apart. So this is something that I will consider and speak with my colleagues about. Right now, we're spending all of our time and effort setting up for the instructional plan to come, hopefully getting the children back all in. And but I will take that with me when I leave today.
Great. Before we move into questions about the instructional plan, can you share a little bit more about school supplies? If parents have ordered their school supplies already, will all of those school supplies still be needed? And should we be expecting changes or additions to the list anytime soon?
Okay, so what we're working on now is streamlining it for a must-have to start the year. Only to say that if you bought the extensive list, that's great, put it away. So for a number of reasons, I asked my teachers to go over the list and just streamline it for now. The children are going to be carrying things back and forth. So that's why we wanted the essential in the backpacks to start. But I don't want anybody to have regrets if they purchased additional supplies, because there will be time during the year that you will be asked to use those things. I want to ask everybody, I might have said this already, to bring in a towel for outdoor learning. That will be added to the list. And I will be sharing the revised lists that have been streamlined with the PTA and on our website.
And that will be coming as soon as possible.
Yes.
Just for those who asked about it in the chat.
Yes, I have some of the lists already completed, and we're working on the other few.
Great. One last question about mask wearing before we move to instruction. Just for our youngest learners, first graders, kindergartners, second graders may not have these issues, but certainly out outside and the classrooms are hot. How will teachers or paraprofessional staff monitor overheating or breathing difficulties related to mask wearing if the kids are not able or don't necessarily communicate it themselves?
So again, we'll have a smaller class to start, and teachers will be watching and monitoring the children. And just because we may have one mask break scheduled on our formal schedule of the day, we are all very much aware that children may need to have a mask break more frequently. And it could just mean, one child adjusting, putting it back on. It could mean everybody going outside for a stretch and a break, especially for our younger children, who and our teachers are hoping to do a lot of the instruction as well as they can outside, distanced. So that will give more opportunities for taking a breath.
Okay. Moving on to some instructional questions. One that's come up very frequently is, can you share more about the process for switching between in-person and fully virtual learning? We know that parents are required to fill out a selection form by this Friday if they wish to go fully virtual at the start of school. But when and how can parents opt back in or opt out?
Okay, so we would appreciate if you would let us know by August 28th. We have to set up our classrooms. We want to know how many children will be with us, how many children will be learning remotely. So if you're in school, if you're doing the hybrid, it's 1 day in, 1 day at home, 1 day in, 1 day at home. Everybody's home on Wednesdays. The difference between the hybrid, the at-home hybrid, and the all remote is live streaming. So if you're all remote, your children can have the opportunity to join in the 3 virtual lessons, the 3 Google Meet opportunities, but they can live stream in between. So they can watch what's going on in the classroom. That's not an interactive, but it's still being part of the classroom, watching the teacher and doing the work along with the class. I don't know, the hybrid students on their off days don't have that live streaming opportunity, but they still have the connection with the teacher at the beginning and end of the day and a lesson in the middle.
And how can parents, if they start in person and wish to opt out, how do they make the switch, and vice versa? How do parents who have opted out and wish to send their children back in person make that change?
It's fluid. We will have a space for your child when you're ready. If you change your mind, when you change your mind, you can come right back.
Okay. How will live streaming work if teachers take kids outside? What will the kids at home do, or will the teachers not be leaving the classroom during those designated live stream periods?
So the live streaming outside, right, could not take place. However, the instruction on if they go outside during the time that they are scheduled to be on a Google Meet, we're working on getting Wi-Fi hooked up outside. But that is true, and that's a point. If the classroom goes outside, a live streamed remote student would not be able to join them during that time, which means that the teachers would have to limit their time outside to the time that they're on the computer with the whole class. So that's definitely something that needs to be worked out. Right, a live streaming student would not be able to join the class outside unless they were doing computer work. Then they could.
Question about start time and okay. Question about live streaming. You mentioned just now that it is not interactive, and just want to confirm, can a child ask a question during the live stream and interact with the class when they're at home?
During the time that they're in a Google Meet with the teacher. But I am not aware of how they could ask a question during live streaming.
Are the schedules shown in the video presentation sample schedules, or will every class follow that same schedule throughout the day with some variation based on lunch period and so on? Right. So for instance, if there's a Google meeting for remote learners, will it be at the same time each day or each week, or will it change week to week?
So it will be at the same time. What we're deciding right now, what I'm going to be having conversations with the teachers, is we start our day at 8:20. And my conversation with the teachers will be, do they need time before the Google Meet Or do we start right at 8:20 with that Google Meet? So that's still going to be determined. However, that's one schedule for one class on one grade level. So what's going to happen is the rotation of special is going to be different for every class on a grade level. We used to have all first grade having a special at 1:45. That can't happen now because it's the same teacher. So for each classroom in first grade, they will have a different time for a special. They will have the same time for lunch. And what's still to be determined is what time that first meeting in the morning will start, because our day does start at 8:20, but I don't believe it would be necessary for our remote children maybe to be part of the lunch count and the attendance count and children staggering in. So I don't want that time to be lost for the children on the computer. So that's still a discussion that will be had with the teachers as far as the exact start time. Our day is not changing. All children still need to be in school 2:35.
Got it. Can you talk about some of the things the school or the district is doing to protect the privacy of children in a live streaming environment?
I'm not sure I understand.
So if the camera is on the classroom for the whole day, students would be on video and on camera and kind of live all day. Has the district considered any of the privacy concerns associated with that? Or will the camera just be pointed at the teacher and no students will be in view?
That's how I understand it, but I will get clarification.
Great. We're getting a lot of questions around the schedule, and is it the same schedule for all grades? So on days when two siblings are home and in different grades, how can parents best help their students if they're not on the same schedules, or if the whole family needs to be accessing the internet at the same time? How has the district sort of planned for that, and is there any support plan for parents to help their kids manage the day-to-day at home?
Because it's a one-to-one, and every child has a device, and we want to start the day and end the day together as one. There will be times when when all children will be in their meet at the same time. That's I guess, and that the purpose of that is to create the class community first thing in the morning. As far as support from parents, because for the hybrid students, they'll be doing the same thing, whether they're in school or out of school. So they'll have the experience, and children will be able to do this by themselves, log into their Google Classroom and log into their Google Meet and participate. So I would say it'll take a little bit of time at the beginning, but the children should be independent with logging in and participating in their meet.
Thank you. Can you speak a little bit about special education, children with IEPs, and our English language learners? There are several questions that we've gotten about students who receive pull-out services. Will they continue to be pulled out? You mentioned that earlier, that they would. If they're designated to be pulled out for group services, which would involve mingling of cohorts, are those still being provided in groups, or will IEPs change?
So one thing we're doing is making sure that our children who are on the hybrid plan are receiving their pull-out services in person on the days that they're at school. Special education students will be pulled if they're groups. They will be going to their resource room or their speech class and socially distanced, from each other, wearing masks. If they're supposed to have services 3, 4, or 5 days a week, those other days will be done remotely. ENL students, same thing, are entering and emerging ENL students. They can come to school 4 days a week. They are invited every day. Those are the only students well, in addition, our self-contained class will also come every day. We have one self-contained class in our school. The other buildings have programs as well. So they will come every day. They will see their teacher. They'll get their services. For the other ENL students, they will get ENL 2 days a week live and 3 days a week virtually. And if they're out in groups, the ENL teachers have access to the cafetorium to spread out if their groups are too large for their small classrooms.
Okay. Some other questions about remote instruction, whether it's being done for students who are fully virtual or students who are on their remote days for hybrid, or in the event of a closure, everybody is forced to go fully remote. A lot of parents noted that last year there were lots of differences in how each teacher managed their remote classrooms, how they conducted remote learning. Are there any new expectations of consistency among the virtual classrooms this year, either in terms of what's being expected of students or consistency across how material is taught across a particular grade level? Are there sort of, have teachers been doing some thinking about that?
Well, the district instructional committee, and I believe it's on the district website, has published our remote plan for learning, and it includes two live lessons a day, I believe, which is not what was required in the spring. Also, consistent check-ins with students. I believe it's 2 check-ins a week, and additional asynchronous learning. So there are requirements that have to be met to ensure consistency from one teacher to another, from one grade level to another. There will be, it'll be a more complete virtual plan.
Okay. How will screen time be limited for our youngest learners, or will it be limited for our youngest learners? And if so, what consideration has been given to the amount of screen time that, kindergarten, first and second graders may be expected to do during in this kind of program?
So when they're in school, it's going to be a combination of hands-on learning and also some learning on screen so that they can transition to screen time at home. We debated and we ended up ordering math books, regular workbooks, instead of just signing in for an online program. And those math, if we have to go to full remote, those workbooks will be sent home so children can work in their workbooks and also work on their computers. When they're doing writing lessons, they'll be writing using paper and pencil. We're not stopping that. We're encouraging crayons, and we're encouraging markers and sketching and all the things that we know are best practices for early childhood. So we will have a combination of screen time and hands-on learning.
Great. And can you confirm that students will be responsible for bringing their supplies and materials, including their devices, to and from school on the days that they attend?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Everything will be in their backpacks, not to be overloaded. Again, we don't have a lot of hard books, maybe a math workbook. If we have to stay at home, we want to make sure that everybody has what they need at home. If we ever, we have to revert to remote learning only.
Well, a two-part question about the one-to-one initiative. When will the devices be distributed to students? And will there be an opportunity for families who already have enough devices to opt out of the one-to-one or potentially donate it back?
Okay, so I know that the devices are in. I'm waiting to hear more on the distribution plan. When we do have it and it's sent out, it will come through an email to all parents. I know that kindergarten and first grade will have iPads and Chromebooks for grades 2 to 5. But I'm still waiting to hear more about the distribution plan. Our technology department is working on that currently.
And do you know if there will be an opportunity to opt out or donate back?
I don't. I have to get more information for you.
Some questions around the sort of at-home learning program. Will at-home learners, whether hybrid or fully remote, be required to print out lessons day to day, or will any hard materials be provided from school?
You mean on the hybrid days at home?
Yeah, for hybrid days at home, and then for remote learners, would the expectation be that they will be able to print out materials?
Yes, and there's I think it'll be a combination. Teachers have been trained to change some of the online platforms into documents that can be worked on on the computer. Some parents will prefer to print. That will be an option as well. Teachers have not been told that they can't send home worksheets, so they will be continuing to do a combination of all of the above.
And will any materials that in-person students receive, like the math books you mentioned before, will those also be distributed in some way to fully remote learners?
Yes, they would have to be.
Okay. Will children who choose, or will fully remote learners be assessed in the same way as other students throughout the year? And maybe more broadly, could you speak a little bit to how students will be assessed in this new learning environment?
Well, teachers will be giving assignments, and parents will be helping their children, and children will be sending back the assignments virtually. And so that's how the assessments would take place.
And will the sort of I don't want to say the scale, but will the metrics on which children are assessed remain the same this year as they have been in years past, or are we going to be assessing student progress in different ways, given just perhaps the disruptions to learning, or the new learning curve that will be required just to even get to a baseline of learning this year?
Well, as far as we're still determining how we can do our NWEA for a benchmark assessment at the beginning and the end of the year to monitor growth. That, if we are able to assess all of our students, or at least our students who are here, that would remain the same. And as far as teachers assessing their assignments, that wouldn't change. That wouldn't, they would still use the same criteria and use assessments to inform their instruction.
Just a question about teachers. Can you clarify who is teaching in person versus remote? Is it the same? Is it our teachers who we've come to know and love? Are there other teachers? How is this model being staffed?
Our teachers have remained the same in the same grades. They're responsible for their hybrid and their remote students. We have, I don't know if I mentioned, we have our 3 permanent subs in the building. They will be stepping in if any teachers are out for an extended period of time. But we do not have additional staff members hired to come in to teach remote learning.
And how much teacher and student interaction will there be on the virtual platform on a daily basis? And what are the expectations around how timely it will be?
So there's again, the morning, the end of the day, and one meeting in the middle of the day as well. There is room right now. It's, I believe, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, and 45 minutes, but that 30-minute block in the middle, we're going to relook at our schedule and try to extend that to 45. So what that would mean was, where it says mask break, 30 minutes, we would have mask break and asynchronous instruction for 45 minutes so that the teacher can be paying attention to the remote students. And when we say asynchronous instruction, in the lower grades, it might be they're on Dreambox Math, or they're on a guided reading platform, or they're doing iRead, just different online RAS Kids online instructional programs after their math break, which is something that they've always done but it would be done, and it's something that they always do independently. So it could be under the supervision of a paraprofessional while the teacher is instructing her remote students virtually.
Thank you. I know we're up at 12:30, so I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. Just one last set of questions about stuff that goes to and from school. We had some questions about books, both library books and books from the classroom lending library. Will those still be available? If so, what are the processes around those? And the towel that was mentioned earlier goes into school on Monday and comes back on Friday, or is it daily back and forth?
Okay. So the towel could be something that's kept in a backpack and goes back and forth, so a parent can decide whether or not they want to wash it in between. The library books in the classrooms can be used, but they wouldn't change hands. They would sit for 3 days. So in other words, if a teacher sends home a book, it sits for 3 days before it can be given out to another student. Library is going to be 2 weeks. 2 weeks every 6-week rotation. I believe our librarians' resources will be managed, will be used mostly this year by classroom teachers. We spent a lot of the summer talking about the best ways to circulate books, but under this instructional plan, I believe that we will not be circulating books from our library, but the teachers will be borrowing the books for their instruction. Again, that may change, but that's how we left it the last time we spoke.
Okay. I think that wraps up our time. Thank you to everybody for joining today. Thank you, Dr. Cohen, for the information you've shared. Thank you to Victor Alfaya, who's been on the line interpreting. If anybody has any any questions, please getting some feedback. Please do send them to Dr. Cohen. Dr. Cohen, I know you've been inundated lately, so it may take a minute to respond.
Yes, thank you. But that's something I try to get back to parents as quickly as I can. And there are many emails. So where I try to respond immediately. If it takes me 24 hours, please forgive me, 48 hours, I hope not. But I'm trying to keep up with your questions and be helpful.
Yes, and everything that came up in the chat today, I know there were several questions that didn't get addressed. The chat will be, the transcript will be shared with Dr. Cohen. And again, we will be compiling everything that we can into an FAQ document to share on the PTA website. So thank you again for joining. Please do remember to fill out that form if you are choosing the fully virtual platform by Friday the 28th. I put that link in the chat. I will put it there again for anybody who is interested. And thanks again, really appreciate it. The recording of this will be available after the meeting. Thanks for joining, everyone. And thanks, Dr. Cohen.
And thank you. Bye-bye.